The reality of Nunavut is that without the mineral resource sector, there's no real wage economy.
The wage economy. It's not just a buzzword, it's the backbone. We're talking about skilled trades, professional services, high-tech jobs, business investment. And not just any business, but the ones that are locally owned and led. That's what drives a stronger, more self-reliant Nunavut. And frankly, that's what secures Canada's future in the Arctic. Welcome to The Arctic Edge, stories from Canada's frontier. I'm Hannah Thibodeau. In this episode, we are digging into the story behind the story. How mining and resource development aren't just economic drivers, they're strengthening communities, powering lasting infrastructure, and laying the foundation for long-term strength and sovereignty in the North.
I am David Akeeagok. I am the President and CEO for Agnico Investments Corporation, and I live in Rankin Inlet, Nunavut.
Agnico Investments Corporation is an Inuit birthright corporation, representing the interests of all Inuit in the Kivalliq region. And under the leadership of David Kakatunik, Agnico is helping shape a future that's grounded in opportunity. Their mission? Support local business, reinvest in Inuit communities, and open doors for Inuit to participate fully in the wage economy. And that is where mining fits in. Yes, the mines provide high-paying jobs, but the ripple effect is much bigger. The mining operations need technical services, transportation, catering, and logistics. So there are whole subsectors of the economy that have grown because of it.
That significance of having an economy being developed in our territory, that critical relationship is developed through the different joint ventures that we have. We have civil works companies, we have blasting companies, we have transportation companies, both airlines and shipping companies.
It is a long list of new businesses that have taken root since mining companies like Agnico Eagle started operating in Nunavut.
We have contracts that provide you a base of economy as well.
These new emerging businesses have helped broaden and strengthen the territory's economy. And the best part? They're local, connected to the communities, and in turn, connecting those communities across the territory.
Now you have established businesses, established companies, trade routes, and it brings to the table a scale of economy that you can then extend to the population within the region and different industries. So it's a catalyst for economic development.
My name is Alex Buchan. I'm the Director of Nunavut Affairs for Agnico Eagle. I'm based in Cambridge Bay in Nunavut.
Alex Buchan knows more than a thing or two when it comes to the economic impact mining and resource development has on Canada's north.
We don't have farming. We don't have forestry. We have limited fishing. We're so far away from markets that manufacturing is probably not something that we can aspire to realistically.
But what it does have is an abundance of minerals and natural resources.
Those are the things that we have that are capable of fueling our economy.
It's very important.
P.J. Akeeagok is the 6th Premier of Nunavut. We caught up with him at an event in Toronto in April 2025. He made no bones about it. Mining is absolutely critical to Nunavut's economic foundation and long-term stability.
It's our biggest GDP to the territory comes from mining. It's the second largest employer in the territory in terms of opportunities for Nunavut to take.
The biggest employer of Nunavut is still the government, but the Premier says it's the mix of public sector stability and private sector mining investment that creates a real window of opportunity for companies looking to do business in the territory. And here's why that matters. In 2024, Premier Akeeagok and then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau signed the Devolution Agreement.
Today begins a new chapter in the history of Nunavut, a transformative chapter.
The largest land transfer in Canadian history.
Now, the formal name for this process is devolution. But in many ways, it's more of an evolution in our partnership as the federal government and the territory, and also an evolution in the progress towards self-determination for Inuit living in Nunavut.
It gives Nunavut It full control over more than 2 million square kilometers of land, fresh water, and the right to develop their own minerals, gas, and oil resources. The result? Certainty. And that matters a lot for mining and resource companies that invest in Nunavut.
There's certainty, there's a strong alignment of wanting to see the regulatory process, which we have a robust system, which could continue to be improved throughout the process.
Certainty and alignment. Two things both governments and investors care about, especially when it comes to mining.
My name is Mads Kvist Fredriksen. I'm the Executive Director of the Arctic Economic Council.
Mads Kvist Fredriksen says if you're serious about doing business in the North, it starts with something simple: showing respect. Because if you're not working with the residents, you're not going to be working there for long.
If you go in and make an investment, you don't want to risk this investment because of disagreements in the local communities. So you engage in the local communities.
And we're not just talking about an exercise in government relations. It's not about photo ops or lip service. It's about being a part of the place and investing in more than just the project. You're investing in the people who live there.
Mining particularly, but across all industries, they also help with organizing local football matches, organizing community centers and so on, because they're in it for the long run.
And long run means exactly that.
People don't realize how long it takes to do mining.
It can take more than a decade before minerals are extracted from the ground.
And from you start exploration to the mine goes online, it takes more than 12 to 13 years.
While companies are waiting to pull those minerals out of the ground, they're already building the infrastructure around it.
Building schools in some parts of the north, building roads in some part of the north, runways have to be constructed. So all of this is happening during the time.
In other words, the community starts seeing benefits before a single shipment leaves the site.
When the mine then is up and running, it needs catering. It needs healthcare services. It needs the workforce to go to school. And then not to forget, they have to pay taxes. So taxes are also paid to the local communities. And I think it's important not to see it as a one-off. It's not only the mine itself, it's everything around it, and it's the whole life cycle of the mine.
It's not just about what's pulled from the ground. It's about what's made possible above it. A future that feels real. A future that feels like it belongs to the people who live there. Now meet Sean Boyd.
Sean Boyd, chairman of Agnico Eagle Mines Limited, located in Toronto.
Sean has spent over 4 decades in the mining industry, working around the world. But Nunavut, he says, is different. Because from day one, the territory was shaped with resources in mind. When Nunavut was founded in 1999, it wasn't just a political move. It was a strategic one.
The Nunavut It basically said, we'll take back 18% direct interest in the landmass, which is 3.5 times the size of France, and we'll select that 18% based on geological potential. And so they're in the resource development business by design.
That vision of the founders planted the seeds for the territory's future success.
That's the way to build out a solid foundation for a growing economy there. Not that we want resource to be the massive or the biggest part of the economy, but we've got to build somewhere, and that's where we have a real competitive advantage. Canada does that well, and certain companies do that really well in the north. So everything's really aligning.
There's that idea of alignment again, an alignment based on engaging with the community. It means standing in the cold and listening. It means building trust, one conversation at a time. When Agnico Eagle first came north, they couldn't just mine the land. They had to prove they belonged on it. And that started with a willingness to do more than just extract. They had to learn.
The interesting thing for us is we went for the first time in 2007 to do some initial work on a potential deposit that we felt could be a mine. And we went to Baker Lake. That's the only inland community in Nunavut. Have-not town, unemployment 40 to 50%. So we weren't sure what to expect as miners, as people from the south. And after 3 days there, we left and said, boy, that's a place we can do business. The people did not judge us as being miners or from the south.
To put this in perspective, the mining site is about 110 kilometers north of Baker Lake. The first gold discoveries were made in the 1980s, but the site was unremarkable.
It was maybe 4/10, 5/10. There was nothing there. That was my first experience of Meadowbank.
That's Peter Tapatai, founder and president of Peter's Expediting. He credits the success of his entrepreneurial journey to Agnico Eagle's commitment to revive the mine at Meadowbank Complex. It brought opportunity to the community, but perhaps more important, it brought hope.
People were really keen and interested about Meadowbank because Inuit and other Aboriginal people get excited when there's exploration going on because they know they have an opportunity to work. Because people are constantly looking for seasonal work or full-time work. So we had a very high state of unemployment.
That connection between opportunity and hope was built on mutual trust and respect. The Inuit welcomed Sean's team. And in return, Agnico Eagle didn't just learn how to do business in the north, they learned how to be a part of it.
They have an open heart. They wanted to know how we could work together and create opportunity. And we were really encouraged. And we used that then to sort of build out a model for our business. And so when you see the passion that they have for their part of Canada, you can't help but get excited, and you can't help but want to help them realize their potential.
What Sean Boyd describes is the evolution of Nunavut, a vision that took shape in 1993 when former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney signed the agreement to create the territory.
I've always thought that what the North wants is not a check from Ottawa. The North wants self-reliance, dignity, and prosperity brought about by economic development here in Northern Canada.
Nunavut's success was never just about dollars and cents. It's about strong communities, grounded in heritage, guided by history, and focused on building sustainable local economies. And for companies like Agnico Eagle, that's meant something simple but powerful. Listening. Listening to the community, listening to Inuit elders, not just out of respect, but to truly understand how to do business that aligns with Inuit values.
It's not just window dressing to talk to elders, it's valuable.
Inuit elders are a part of the process. They visit mine sites. They speak with Inuit workers. The Kivalliq Inuit Elders Advisory Committee, 21 elders from local communities, help guide everything from exploration, workforce planning, to wellness and operations. Their knowledge, their values, and their voices are woven into the way things are done.
And they know the land, they know the animals, and they can think to themselves, well, if you put something here, this is how the animal is going to react. It's not just there for them to say, oh, I'm worried about this or I'm worried about that. No, they can tell you very exact things about how to set up your operation and how to operate properly.
And it goes even further. Peter Tapatai says the elders aren't just keepers of the past or stewards of the present. They're visionaries. They're thinking about the future, about what this means for the next generation of Nunavut It. That was a driving force behind the community support for Meadowbank.
When the project started, the Inuit of our community, especially the elders, were 100% behind because they wanted their children to work. They weren't thinking about themselves anymore. They were thinking about the youth.
The impact of that mindset isn't something most of us in the South can fully grasp. Some Nunavut have literally lived through a shift unlike any other, from the era of the igloo to the era of the internet, all within a single lifetime.
Most of our elders have been lived off and sustained on our lands, and they know this land inside out.
That's David Akeeagok, Nunavut's Minister for Community Services. He says the foresight of the elders, their focus on future generations, is driven by their commitment to stewardship and their relationship to the land. So that raises the question, how do they square mining with traditional values?
Extracting minerals is you're tearing up the land. And that is a very foreign thing, especially for our elders, of tearing up the land to get a small amount of extraction, but a whole lot of... and when a mining company comes and says, this is what we'll be doing, and at the end, it's going to look the same way that it did. And that's what comforts them, is that you're here for a short time. You respect that land, and you return it in the state that you found it or better.
That is worth repeating. Respect the land and leave it better than you found it. That is the guiding principle of the alignment the Premier talked about. It's the underpinning of the trust and accountability that every resource company must earn if they want to do business in Nunavut. As we were preparing this episode, a major announcement came from the governments of Manitoba and Nunavut. A deal to run a hydro and fiber line from northern Manitoba into Nunavut. Premier Akeeagok says it's a win for the environment, helping Nunavut reduce its reliance on diesel generators to produce electricity. And it's good for the economy.
It's been great to see Inuit-led initiatives such as this one with the Akeeagok Hydro Fiber Link bring a potential solution to our challenge that we see. We all want to transition to the green energy around. When we talk about climate change, we are the first to see it. We are the first to feel it. And there's no more urgency than the one where we do want to transition to it.
The project is set to serve 5 Kivalliq communities. It still needs federal support. Those discussions are ongoing. Now, connecting Nunavut to the power grid is an important story on its own. But David Kakatunik says this project likely wouldn't even be on the table if the mines weren't such a critical part of Nunavut's economy.
Which is really important, and this links again the relationship with the mining industry and Inuit political ambitions and governments in this case. Because if we were to look at the scale of economy, the economics of bringing a $3 billion line into the region and serving 5 communities, because that's the reach that we would have, we don't have a business case.
In other words, it wouldn't make economic sense to build hydro and fiber lines for such a small, remote population. It only begins to make sense when the mines are consumers of that electricity.
Agnico's operations requires a lot more electrical load than the communities. It's about 4 times as much. And the math that I see is Agnico would be 74% of the electrical load that we would import into the region. And then that gives us a scale of economy that we can actually produce a business case.
This is the economic effect of mining in the North, unlocking transformational infrastructure, reducing climate risks by replacing diesel, lowering the cost of doing business, replacing slow satellite connections with high-speed fiber. And importantly, as the Premier emphasized, this is Inuit-led. In our next episode, what does Inuit-led and Inuit-owned business mean to Nunavut's economic future? I'm Hannah Thibodeau. Thank you for listening to The Arctic Edge, stories from Canada's frontier.